don't want to admit the failures, or we act like the failure is the end all be all. And it's really hard for, like I said in the beginning, those type A personalities who are just like, oh my God, if I don't get an A, this is not going to work. If this business doesn't work, I'm going to be a laughing stock. If I can't get the product off the ground, people won't believe in me. And I think that in the days of social media, like you mentioned, transparency is the new sexy, if you will. And people like to see the real deal behind the brands. And if you can't be real and vulnerable and expose yourselves, now I'm not saying put yourself in a position of powerlessness. That's not what I'm saying for those of you who are listening. What I'm saying is the world that we live in, people want to know that they're dealing with human beings, number one. Number two, they want to know that they're dealing with people who can admit their faults and failures. We won't even get into the presidential nominee about that one. I'm going to leave that alone. But with social media, people buy more into brands. They buy more into the experience. It's no longer about the label. It's no longer about how pretty it is, like you said earlier. It's no longer about the packaging. I try to be as transparent as I can on social media. There's transparency, and then there's telling too much of your business. I don't think I tell too much of my business, but I try to be as transparent about my business practices and things that I'm doing, because I want to foster that trust with people, and I want to build relationships. And like take this show for instance, we're on Blog Talk Radio, simultaneously Skyping, and I have my Periscope family on here watching at the same time and listening to this conversation, so they can see the real person behind it. Now, whether it works or not, hey, who knows? But I try to share each step of my journey, whether I succeed at it or whether I fail, so that people know who's behind the brand and what it takes to get there. So I think that's a very important point that we bring up about the failure part. Let's move on to the second thing. Every failure has a lesson that you must learn. Now, I have a friend, and this kind of goes hands in hand with spirituality. I have a friend that used to tell me, I used to complain. Yes, I used to complain and say, oh my God, this isn't working, or this isn't happening right. Why do I keep coming back here? Why do I keep learning these same, having these same experiences? And she said to me very distinctly, because you haven't learned your lesson yet. Some failures, there's a built-in lesson to it, and you have to learn the lesson behind the failure in order to move forward. So if you don't fail, you don't learn that you don't do it this way, you don't do it in this time, or you don't do it with this person, or any other fill-in-the-blank scenario. Let's talk about the lessons that you need to learn from the failure. So Angela, tell me a little bit about how you can come out of that mindset of, oh God, I failed, to, oh God, okay, what lessons do I need to learn from here?
Yeah, I call that closing the fail gap. When you have experienced a failure, either a micro failure within your business, the failure of your business on a macro level, you've got to go through a grieving process. There's the shock, there's the grief. You're gonna have to process that. That's really not the immediate time to start trying to figure out what lesson you learned, because it's the wrong energy. But as quickly as you can, right? I feel the pain. Move on. Then you want to start looking and deconstructing, what are the lessons that I can learn here? And you make a very good point. Failure is really a limited term to describe what can happen. There are internal failures in a business. So you can look and say, what did I make bad decisions? Was strategy bad? Was marketing bad? Did I miss something? Right? Did I fail to listen to good advice? Right? Did I have a clear path to revenue? There's some business fundamentals where business fundamentals miss. A lot of times they are in business failures, including my own, because if we have a passion business, we may forget about the money piece.
Right.
But then there can be external factors that are entirely beyond your control. Markets may change. There may be a collapse of the economy. There may be something that happens in your life, a health crisis, a family crisis, that there wasn't a whole lot you could do about it. You just had to deal with it. The lesson of that is that life happens. And sometimes things are going to interfere. But I would say that probably the top lesson that you will learn is when you go back and deconstruct what happened in your business or what happened in the campaign or whatever the field, is that there's going to be a moment when you had your intuitive gut feeling that something was off and you did not respond.
Yeah.
And that to me is a lesson of failure, is learning to trust that instinct and to act quickly on it.
Right.
So that the next time you may be able to avoid the fail by kicking into your gut. And that's what you're talking about, is that intuition of saying, yeah, this is not a good partnership, but it looks good on paper, but I got a bad feeling. That feeling is part of the overall process. And that's the thing, when you're new in business, you don't have the confidence to trust it.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it's trustworthy. It's calm. It's not a panic. It's the calm thing that's like, something isn't right here. I need to do something. And it's that moment, oftentimes, that either you can avert the fail, or you can shorten that fail, and that you like, yep, this is done, time to move on, let's cut this, and cut our losses and get out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that when you can get past the embarrassment of the failure and past the stigmas of the failures, and it wasn't easy for me. And I tell you, to my people on Periscope that are watching this as well, we're about to shut off Periscope so you can listen live on the radio. But when I finally got to a point where I said, you know what? This is something that I had to learn about. This is something that it's not going to kill me. It's not the end of me. If I can get through this and show people how I've gotten through this and help them understand how we are able to see it for what it is, take what we need. It's like advice. You take what you need, you discard the rest. Same thing with the failure. You take what you need, you discard the rest. But you don't let it paralyze you. And I think for me, once I was able to do that and differentiate the embarrassment from the lessons, I could fail like a pro. Now listen, for those of you who are listening, it does not mean that I am saying, hey, we got to be failures. We're raising a nation of failures. That is not what I'm saying. Failure is not about doing badly. It's not about making mistakes and just falling on hard times. Failure is about how you come back from it. And that's the theme. If you've been listening since the beginning of the show, that's what we're really trying to emphasize during this conversation. It's not failure. Failure is not critical, and it's not fatal, and it's not the end all be all. So,
and Adrian, can I just drive home a point that you're making?
Yeah.
To have a failure is not to be a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the bottom line. You will have many failures. That doesn't make you a failure as a human being, a failure as a business person. And that's the thing we fear.
Yes.
We're not really fearing learning lessons. We're fearing being a failure. So you are not a failure simply because you have failed. So have a failure, but it does not make you a failure. Separate those two, like you say, you can feel like a pro.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I want to move that transitions us into the next talking point. We're more critical of ourselves and our own failures than anybody else. And I'm going to pause really quick, because those of you who are on Periscope, thank you for tuning in. I wanted to give you a kind of a taste of the conversation that I'm having with Angela Stalcup. We're talking for episode number 2 about the fear of failure and how to learn from the lessons of failure. So if you want to continue the conversation or listen live, go to blogtalkradio.com/Mogul Chix. That's with an X. And you can hear the rest of the conversation, or you can just download it on iTunes. So for those of you on Periscope, we'll see you later, but we're going to continue. Bye.